As most of you probably know, my name is Charles Cooper. For you who may not, I'm one of the teaching pastors here, recently joined, and how exciting it is for me to get a chance to speak during this particular series when we're talking about You Are a Missionary. Perhaps that's shocking to you, something you have not known before. It may scare you greatly, but I hope to allay any fears you have about that as a calling on your life. If you are like me, you like to do chores around the house. I do like to fix things. My record is not too good on fixing, but I try. I would suggest to you that before you ever decide to build cabinetry in your garage, that you first check the wall to see what's you're covering up. Because there are some little things in that garage that are there for a reason. And one of them is a little switch that has a red and black little button in it. And that one is special. And you probably don't want to cover that one with a placard just in case something happened. Because that one probably controls switches that are on the outside of your house that you can plug into. Well, I covered mine. I just moved into the house. It'd been 15 years. And all of a sudden, the outside switch wouldn't work anymore. And I checked the breaker box. I checked the switch. In fact, I changed the switch on the outside of the house because I thought the plugs were bad. And that didn't fix the problem. I tried to run one of those ohm meter things to tell me if I was getting a circuit or not. But I can't use one of those. I don't know what that thing really is. But I finally decided, well, I have no choice. I'm just going to have to call an electrician to fix this problem. And I hated to do it because somehow that suggested I'm just not smart. So I had my wife to call him, and I left. I decided, okay, I'm going to fix this. I told him, people who are so smart and they do it so easily at $55 an hour, he got out of his truck and the garage door was open, and I showed him the problem, and he immediately said, "You probably have tripped the GFI." Yeah. Okay. So he's looking around the garage, and he doesn't see one, and he looks at the shelf, beautiful shelf that I built. What's behind that shelf? A wall. So you say, well, probably there's a little switch. Do you remember if there was a little plug-in switch there that had buttons, that maybe one was red and one was black? No, I'm sure that wasn't back there. So, well, we probably want to take that down. And sure enough, we took it down, and sure enough, right in the middle of that wall was that little switch. You push that little button in, and voila. It's amazing what a short circuit will do for you. Yeah, short circuits are a problem, particularly when you need power. And there's nothing more critical to your life as a believer as you're fulfilling the role that God has given you on this earth. And if you are a member of this church, you became a member, unless you have been here a long time, you went through a process where you became part of the church, be the church. And they put you on this little pipeline thingy, which you may or may not know, and the first thing they said to you was, now listen, you're going to have to believe. And they wanted you to believe the gospel. And then they said, okay, you got to belong, become, and beyond. You remember that? That was a long time ago. Okay, fine. Well, it's important because the last one in that step is beyond. The church, to be the church, you've got to go beyond where you are. That is, not this building, but you, because you are the church, people are the church. So you are critical to this process in terms of not short-circuiting the process. Now, we call it many different things, but we're going to say missionary. You are a missionary, which means God has given you a mission. In fact, The Bible uses different words to describe it depending on the emphasis that it wants to make. For example, we have decided that geographically, we are going to say, okay, now as a church, we're going to boundary ourselves north and south, all the way down to 192, 27, all the way over to Hiawassee. This is our dominion, our domain, as it were, and we are the masters of this domain. Now, they tell me 330,000 people live in this area, which means our church right now, we're running about 3,000 today. Next year, we'll just claim 6,000. It's a good number. How many of you? Raise your hand. Amen. Praise the Lord. So even if we were reaching 6,000 or 10,000, there'd still be a whole lot of folk that we've got to reach in this dominion. So how do we do that? Well, we do it by being the church. That is, fulfilling your mission. We are ambassadors. I like the way Paul says this phrase in 2 Corinthians. He says, therefore, we are ambassadors. Ambassadors, be the church, missionary. You can flip-flop them for Christ. Since God is making his appeal through us, and he is, we plead on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. You know what be reconciled means? It means be a people picker. Because that's what you are. God is calling you to be a people picker. You could never be insulted if someone calls you people picker. Smile. So that's a good thing. Because that's exactly what God is calling you to do. You have been called to reconcile people to God, to pick people. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, be a people picker. You are a missionary. Now, how are you going to be a missionary to your mission field? Because that is the challenge of the geographical area. Your mission field is your neighborhood. It's where you live. It's the people on your block. It's the people that you work with on your job every day. There are people God may potentially have put there just for your mission. It's the people that come across your path by expressing their felt needs to you every day. Now, how do you know the people God may want you to pick, you people picker? Well, there are 3 things I think you need to know in order to be effective in this role. And the first thing you need to know is that people are hurting. Therefore, you need to know their needs. People are hurting. Now, they're not all hurting to the same degree, to be sure. Some are hurting more than others, and they're not all hurting in the same way. Some are hurting psychologically, some are physical, some are spiritual, some are sociologically, but people are hurting to varying degrees. And they express that by giving you clues as to how they are feeling. In fact, Jesus always began with felt needs. In fact, in the text this morning, we're going to look at Matthew. In Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 to 36, Jesus continued going around to all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every sickness. Disease and sickness, felt needs. When he saw the crowds, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and dejected like sheep without a shepherd. Notice the words that are being used: sick, invalid, dejected, stressed, felt needs. He's talking about how people feel, what they are having a sensation of. I like to express it in 2 ways. I say all people have needs, and they do. And if we know their needs, then we start with whether those needs are showing up as felt needs or whether they're going to show up as real needs. Now, we need to camp here for a minute. Felt need, how people feel. What are they feeling? What are they sensing? People will always tell you. I guarantee you they will tell you. They will always talk about what's going on in their lives, though they may not be as specific as necessary, but they will tell you. You don't have to ask. Well, you do have to ask in a way. How you feeling? Then that's all they need to open that floodgate to tell you just exactly what they're feeling. And in fact, it becomes something symptomatic that everybody is feeling pretty much the same thing. Because did you notice in the text that Jesus, he looked at the crowd, and the Bible says he had compassion for them. The word compassion is a beautiful word in the Greek language. It's the word used to describe butterflies in the stomach. If you're an athlete before a really big game, you got to get control of yourself. You got to calm yourself down, stop your hands from shaking, and get a grip, because you got to go out, you got to do your very best, because that's the key to winning. That feeling that you have of unsettled, nervous, this is the reaction that Jesus is having as he looked at the people. Isn't that interesting that he would have a psychophysiological response to the masses of those people? And it says he looked at them and he felt compassion because they were feeling distress and rejection. The word distressed in the Greek is actually the word for tired. They were feeling tired. The consequence of being exhausted. And when you are really, really tired, what's the first thing you want to do when you're really tired? I mean, you're really tired. You want to sit down, which is what the second word means. It means actually to be knocked down, the result of having been put down. So he said they're like sheep without a shepherd. There is nothing in the whole wide world worse than sheep in the animal kingdom. Sheep are stupid. They're defenseless. They have no defense mechanism other than to run. But then when they run, they don't have sense to look where to run. They just start running. And for Jesus to use the metaphor of sheep is really not encouraging. It really isn't. I was doing a revival in a country church one time, and they raised sheep. And they had a little lamb. It was about 4 or 5 months old. And it was in the house. And so I walked in the house. It didn't know me, didn't know my voice. And so it just started freaking out. And then the guy he picked it up in his arm, and he was holding it in his arm. It was just as nice and just peaceful, and I wanted to hold it naturally. I mean, every time you see a newborn baby, what do you want to do with it? You want to hold the thing. So this is a new baby to me, and so I want to hold it, and so I take it in my arm, and I'm thinking that what you do is you stroke it, right, and you tell it it's going to be okay, and you use a baby voice, right? Yeah, use a baby voice. Yeah, boy, that's going to be fine, honey. And then it just showered me. I came to understand that only after it knows you and trusts you will it not shower on you. It was a good thing that it was after the sermon, not before. Sheep are not known to be intelligent. And Jesus used this metaphor to say, listen, they have needs, and the needs are real, and that's where you begin with people. I tell you what, you cannot go through a day. You will not go through a day if you ask people how they're doing and not have someone tell you, I'm just tired. It seems to be the disease of the whole culture. I'm just so tired, man. I don't know. It's time for a vacation. In fact, only in America can you go on a 10-day vacation and come back and you're tired. How you doing? Oh, man, that vacation wore me out. It's called vacation. So you said, listen, people have these felt needs, and that's where you begin, and that's where God will begin with you to harvest these people. Now, people ultimately have a real need. The real need of life, of course, is for salvation if you're not saved. That's the only real need you have. If you are saved, the only real need, the real legitimate, biblically defined need you have is for sanctification. You need to be holier. Because the holier you are, the more the blessing of God flows into your life. and the more difference you make in the life of people. So the real needs in our life is ultimately to get to salvation. We need to explain to them the gospel. Now, how do we do that? Well, we need to understand that people need help. If they are hurting, and they are, then they need help. And the help that God is going to give is for us to know God's plan. People need help. And the only help available ultimately is to get them introduced to God's plan. Now, what is God's plan? Well, in Matthew chapter 9, verse 37 and 38, we are told, he said, now, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is abundant. Notice, the harvest is abundant. You are not planters. You are not cultivators. You are harvesters. See, that takes an awful lot of pressure off of you. Listen, in 2 weeks when we end this series, the last sermon in this series, you need to be here. Let me go ahead and tell you now, you don't want to miss the last sermon in the series, because it's going to unlock the key to you that's going to dispel all of that fear that grips your heart right now. You want me to do what? And your hands shake and you get nervous? You will. Listen. But the workers are few. Therefore, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. So God says, I need people pickers. You need to be one, and you need to pray for more. It's just that simple. He says the harvest is abundant. God has gotten it ready for you. Your job, he says, is to pray. Now, notice he said, pray to God to send out more harvesters. Now, there are actually 7 words in the New Testament for praying. There are different kinds of prayer, okay? This word here means to beg. It means to beg. God is saying, beg me to send out harvesters. So now, well, God, if you know you need harvesters, then why do I have to beg? Guys, he told you to. Beg. Deomai, beg, plead for workers, God says. If you plead with me, I will send out more workers. So guess what we do around here? We do that. In fact, one of the things that we're going to ask you to do is become a pleader with us, and we're all going to plead at the same time. I'll tell you in just a minute what that is. But not only are people need help, and God has a plan, but finally you need to know that Christ offers hope. Now, he offers hope, and it's you. Write that down. Christ offers hope. Now, wherever you're writing, write, it's me. Because you are the hope. It's you, ladies and gentlemen. You, ladies and gentlemen, are what God is sending. Did you notice in verse 38 it says, God pray that he will send out workers. That's what we need, workers. I guarantee you. Last Sunday, first Sunday in March, was my anniversary as a preacher. I've been preaching now 45 years. And it's been a journey. And it's been a blast. I've preached in every kind of church there is. You would not believe over my life how many different kinds of churches that I've gotten into for various things. Seminars, conferences, revivals, all kind of thing. But in every church that I've been, and I've preached in churches of 10,000 when I was in Europe, in Asia, when I was in India, we did a thing, and it was like probably 100,000 people. I mean, it was incredible. But the one thing I have never heard a church say is, you know what, we just have too many workers. Wow, I wish we had something we could give these people to do. They just, oh man, they run us crazy. What can we do? What can we do? Never. No, we never run out of need for workers, and we need more. Dream Center is coming online. We're going to need lots of workers. To reach our harvest, to go from 50 all the way down to 192, from 27 to Hiawassee, lots of workers. We're going to give you the opportunity to be what? to be a harvester, people picker. He said, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers. That word worker, it really means unskilled worker. An unskilled worker is a person you pay today, you would pay him $8 an hour. He has no skills. He's the kind of guy who sweeps up, picks up the broken pieces, moves that brick from here to there, pushes the wheelbarrow over there and empty it. He's unskilled. That's good news for you. Because what that means is that God is not looking for expert pickers. He just wants pickers. You don't have to be seminary trained. You don't have to have taken 50 classes. You don't have to have been taught a special method. All you need to do is open your mouth. And in fact, you're going to see that God has done everything that needs to be done, has already been done. And that's why God can trust you now with this process, because he wants you to pick people. Someone picked you. In fact, there were probably a multitude of people involved in your picking. Probably started with your mom or dad, potentially, or a Sunday school teacher, or it was grandma and grandpa. It was somebody that introduced you to even the knowledge of Christ, that there was a such thing as a Christ. And someone somewhere obeyed this command as a part of Mission Emphasis Month here at FBC as the reason you are seated there. I know for a fact that you would never, I don't care who you are, as I look out there, I look at all your faces, old and young, fresh and seasoned. I can guarantee you, if you were walking down the street and turned a corner and found a blanket and saw movement and heard sound, you would want to open it to see what it is. Because that sound says, that sounds like a baby. I guarantee you, you would. You would not walk by. There is something inside of you that wouldn't let you do that. And you would open that blanket up and see it was a baby. Oh my goodness. Who left? I mean, your mind would immediately start, and you would immediately start wanting, you'd either dial 911, or if you've always wanted a baby, say this is a blessing of God, take and go home, say nothing, or whatever. But you would not leave it. I want you to become like Jesus. When you look at people as you're driving down the road in our geographical locale, your neighbors, have a psychophysiological response like Jesus, where his stomach began to rumble because people are hurting, and the helper is Jesus Christ. That comes from loving people because they're lost. There are two responses I want you to have today. The first one is this. Every day at 9:35, this church, every person in this church who has come to the knowledge, prays for the masses. Now, in order to remind yourself, what you need to do is go into your phone. You don't have time to do it now. I just want you to write down 9:35 a.m. And when you have a chance, we're going to remind you, you need to put in your phone an appointment and you set the appointment for 9:45 a.m. Now, most of your phone will let you do a 10-minute before reminder. So you set it at 9:45, set a 10-minute reminder, and it will chime at 9:35 every day. And when that chime, that will remind you that every person who has become part of our fellowship is going to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send a worker every day until we fill every building we got, including the third campus that'll come online hopefully soon. We want to fill them to the brim. In fact, we want Pastor Chuck preaching 5 times a weekend. We want to wear him out. When he leaves here, we want him to say, "Thank God I'm retired." Praying for workers will do that. The second thing I want you to do is that I know the reason why you're not getting into this kind of, that missionary thing, because it scares you. Come on, let's be honest. Some of you are so afraid that you're going to say the wrong thing that you're afraid to say anything. Some of you say, "I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do it. What if I do it wrong? What if I don't do it right?" I know. We've become so professionalized in our culture, and we put so much emphasis on knowing and writing and all that kind of stuff until a lot of people have just been scared out of doing it. I understand. But if fear is the number one controller of you, I want you to know that is not from God, because the word tells us that God has not given us a spirit of fear. And so this morning, I wanted to specifically pray for those individuals. In fact, the elders, the deacons, the pastors, they're going to come forward. They're going to be standing here. And if you can say to me, "Coop, now listen, I'm afraid to do that." It's no shame in being afraid. I've been doing this 45 years. I'm still afraid to get up. I still have to go through my little thing. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I say something wrong? What if I do something wrong? What if I embarrass myself? What if I embarrass the pastor? Yeah, it's going. Not 9:35, but it was close. I want you to get up out of that seat and come forward, because I want these men to pray for you. Come on, men. Where are my deacons, deaconesses, elders, pastors? If you're here and you're saying, "The reason I don't do it is because I'm really just afraid," I really am. I need you to pray with someone. They're going to pray the prayer of faith over you, saying, "God, by your power, unleash my brother or sister. Release them from this fear, because it did not come from you. And give them the courage to speak the word, to be the church." While the music is playing, don't rush out. We don't have to be in a hurry. It's too serious and too sober a moment to miss. Perhaps you just want to pray for the people who may potentially come forward. You're not coming to say, "I'm embarrassed." I'm coming to say, "I'm willing to be one for Christ." While the music plays, you come, you pray. Maybe not just for you, but for someone else.